Coming up this week on the Digital Lifestyle Show 774, Richard's here and we've got lots to talk about. We'll be talking about new builds of Windows 10 with the new out-of-box experience. I'll be talking about the Surface Duo, how I've been getting on with the dual screen device. I'm really loving that. We'll be talking about new iPhones that have been announced tonight and lots more. So let's get straight to Richard. Richard, good evening.
Good evening, Ian. How are you?
Okay, very good, thanks. And as there's an Apple event going on this evening, but I see on your
is there?
Yeah, I seen on your Twitter feed you were doing far more important things.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. I was assembling the second stage of a Lego Saturn V rocket, which was magnificent and far more interesting than 5G iPhones.
Yeah, definitely more. But I'm a bit concerned about your environmental space. I don't think you've got enough room for it.
I know it's got very well. For those who don't know, the Lego Saturn V is about a meter tall, and like any good space nerd, the problem when you've got the Lego Saturn V is you really need a launch pad for it, and so there's a Chinese outfit that kind of, it looks like it's taken a Lego Ideas design, which was never made by Lego themselves, for like a Pad 39 A or B type launch pad, which fits the Saturn V. Of course, that means that's about 1.25 meters high, which is just ridiculous. And I've realized this now as I've built it, that I can't actually get the crane on top of it because it's hit the ceiling. It's probably mad. Although, yes, I'm going to write a piece on what I think of it. And spoiler alert, I will say it's the first time in lots of Lego assembly that I've ever had to use glue. Exactly. And the other really fun thing about Lego is, of course, taking things apart and making new things out of them, which is what me and my daughter enjoy doing. And this I'm not going to, because I simply don't want it going anywhere near my real Lego, because it's just like, whoa, this stuff is not quite the same. It's as long as you know what to expect, it's fine. But it's not quite the same.
Yeah, it looks good. So anybody wants to have a look at that should check out your tweets. You've got some good pictures of it on there.
Yes, this is good
now,
fun.
Other than Lego, we have got lots of other things we talk about tonight. We've got some Duo stuff. We've got some insider news. We can talk about the Apple stuff as well, and we've got first a tip. Now, every time when we were setting up recording, every time I mentioned this, it crashed your Teams, even though.
Yes. So I'm going to sit nervously now when you do this.
Yeah. You know, we've been using Teams for a few months now, and they've always complained about the auto gain. I set the audio levels up, and then Teams would love to mess with it. And of course, when you're doing a podcast, you're not always talking. So I'll be quiet while you and Gary are talking, and then when I come back in, it always clips those initial few words because the audio level's too high, because of the auto gain. And last week we couldn't even get the microphone to work at all. It just kept putting it down to nothing. So I was playing around with this last week, and I had two different USB mics, the blue one I'm on now and another one, 3 different laptops, 2 Surfaces here and a Dell, and 2 on insiders and 1 not on insider, 2 different Teams installs, so entirely different domains, and I could replicate the problem with the blue mic and the other USB mic across all 3 devices and all combinations, services. And what it seemed to be doing is, especially the blue one, if you used headphones, you can plug headphones into this microphone, and if you use the headphones and set Teams up to be headphones and microphone, there was no issue. It's when you're using another alternative for the headphones, because I'm using the Surface earbuds, and as soon as you selected that, it faded the microphone down to nothing, which is what we were noticing last week. So anyway, I found there's no way to stop Teams messing with the microphone levels. It's designed, I think, to work out of the box just for new users, and it worked. But I did find a little solution, which is something I used in the past called Virtual Box Cable, VB cables. And it's a little driver that you install, a little free driver you install, and it creates it as another recording device, another microphone, effectively. And then what you do then is in the old sound control panel, which they still haven't fully replicated in settings yet. You find your microphone, you tick on the listen box and point it to the VB cable, which means it routes the output of your microphone to the VB cable, and then in Teams you use the VB cable as your microphone, and it doesn't alter the levels. And that's what I'm using now. Hopefully this works. If this sounds terrible on the recording, then you're going to be listening to this saying, well, why have you done that? But hopefully this works quite well. So I did test it. It sounded okay, but it's a good solution. But it's also a good solution if you're trying to use your microphone and it completely stops your things working. VV cables just give you that option to get around that. So hopefully this sounds okay. I don't know why Microsoft just don't have a little tick box that says don't control my microphone levels, like Skype used to do, or Skype does. So another setting that they need to put in there for Teams. I can see why they do it, because they want to make it work, out of the box. And but for some people, I think it'd be better to override that. I know there's someone that I work with always joins a call with the inbuilt laptop microphone, and it just picks up the fan. And when they speak, it's super distorted. So if we could turn that gain down a bit, then that would be fine. But you can't do it in Teams. So hopefully that's my tip. Anyway, I did write this up just in case anybody else wants to follow along and try and fix it for themselves.
Great.
Cool. Okay, so anyway, that's enough Teams. Let's talk about the iPhone announcement that was seen as us tonight. So we've got new iPhones coming out. Do they look super exciting?
No, they've got a notch again. No, this is the iPhone 12, isn't it? Yes. I mean, it's been trailed for a while in a manner that I found quite offensive, because all over Twitter it kept saying high speed. I thought, really? That's how rude.
Yes, I've seen those things today. Yeah,
that's Mr. Speed to you. Anyway, so
in fact, we're going to show that I'll share my screen so that we can see the video.
but so today, the much expected iPhone 12 appeared, and yes, obviously, Apple have invented 5G, because obviously Apple innovate everything, and 4 new iPhone 12s, isn't it? I think there's the iPhone 12 Mini, Ordinary 12, a Pro, and Pro Max, and the price goes from for Apple, a relatively reasonable $699 for the Mini, up to I think $1,100 for the Pro Max. I want to say, and this is all just happened. So and they're also unusually, they're not all going to go on sale at the same time, are they? I think I think they're taking pre-orders for the 12 and 12 Pro on the 16th of October and start of November for the 12 Mini and 12 Pro Max. And then they're going to make them available October 23rd and November 13th. So it's being staggered a bit. It's an interesting, if it is a change in design, it looks like they've gone back to kind of an iPhone 5-ish look to me. I don't know what you think about it.
Yeah, I thought that with the sort of the straight edges reminds me very much of the iPhone 5.
Yeah. Now, one thing that didn't work out, and I don't know if you saw this, is because the iPad also got that kind of more squared off this time around. They've not put any kind of sort of fingerprint reader, have they? It's still Face ID or nothing.
Yes, I have. I think it's still Face ID. Yeah.
Yeah, because
I'm surprised about that.
I was surprised when obviously these things are designed months and months in advance, but you do kind of think, well, they've had since probably February, March to know that a bad thing was coming. And clearly they shoved the thumbprint reader quickly onto the iPad. So it's a shame they couldn't find a way of making that work on the iPhone, really, because I mean, if like me and you got a Face ID iPhone, I have to say, obviously at time of recording, we're all still wearing masks and things, and it doesn't look as though that's going to go away anytime soon. And a Face ID just doesn't work properly with the mask, so I was disappointed that that's not there. And that, to be frank, would stop me buying one, because it's just a pain to have to key in. I mean, I think one Apple fan said, well, it's great because they've made it much faster to drop into the password now. I think, but that's kind of missing the point. My Samsung phone, I just wave my thumb over the power button, it just goes straight in. Surface, Duo, you use a thumbprint and in you go. So why Apple are sticking with this? I can only assume it's just stubbornness on their part, really.
Yeah, I think so. I think probably, like you said, partly it was lead time as well.
Yeah.
But especially when you're using the Apple Pay, you need to unlock it I think you have to be unlocked, don't you? Or you have to authenticate for Apple Pay, don't you?
It depends. I mean, if for example, using an Apple Watch, you can do Apple Pay just by pressing the button twice on the watch, and that seems to work without needing any kind of unlocking. At least that's as long as the watch is paired with the iPhone, and the iPhone is functioning, it's all fine. You don't need to unlock the iPhone to pay with the watch. If you want to pay with the iPhone and tap with that, then yes, you do. You need to use Face ID for that, which again, as you say, it doesn't really work very well. So
really, I mean, you can't be at a checkout.
Yeah,
taking your face mask off. You just can't do that nowadays.
Well, not at all. No. I mean, you'll rightly get thrown out because it's against the rules. You know, it's as simple as that. You know, however you feel about masks and wearing of masks, the rules are the rules. And you know, if certainly in the UK, if you're not wearing a mask in a supermarket or a store environment when you're paying, then you're going to be in trouble, and rightly so, because they are the rules. And I would urge anyone listening who may worry about masks and things, unless you have an exemption, be kind to shop workers, because you know they haven't made the rules, but please obey them. But back to the iPhone 12, that's me off my soapbox there. So it's, I mean, the notch I think is a notch a bit smaller. It's still quite epic compared to Samsung. So the four phones, I mean, as I was saying, the notch looks a bit smaller, but it's certainly substantially larger than many modern phones. You know, say, you know, again, I always think of my Samsung, which has got a kind of hole punch notch in there. We shan't mention the Surface Duo and its colossal bezels because they really are.
Yeah. I'm just showing on the video the Note 20 with the tiny punch hole.
Yeah, exactly. And I see no reason why the iPhone has to have such a massive notch. It seems to be, you know, almost like prototype tech really in some ways. But I know they'll insist that it's got the 3D scanner in there and the LiDAR, what have you, but the Face ID sensor. But ultimately, I would rather they just ditched the notch and brought back a thumbprint at the moment. But anyway,
what does the LiDAR do?
That is for 3D scanning. Right, so it can scan the surrounding area. So I think is it the Pro that gets it? I think. So I mean, you've also got, you know, a decent camera. You've got I think they've gone OLED in the screens, although I don't think there's a 120 hertz option, is there? Sorry, megahertz option is there for the screen. So I think you'll find a more premium Android phone will probably have a better display, but again, that'd be fine for most people. They've all got 5G. I believe it's quite smart 5G, and then it will fall back to 4G if it doesn't need the full 5G power, because obviously 5G is a bit power hungry in these devices. So I think that's a neat feature. You've got the ceramic screen now, so that should hopefully make the screen last a bit longer. But there's nothing particularly exciting there, really. You've got the A14 Bionic processor. They've fiddled with the wireless charging a bit, but the screens go from, I think, 5.4 inch to an Ian Dixon Bating 6.77 inches for the Pro.
That's good, yeah.
And that's pretty much it. I think the only thing that really caught my eye was they are dropping the charger and the headphones, aren't they?
Yeah, that's right, not included.
Yeah, so which is, I think when you're spending that much cash on a phone, it's a bit disappointing. I mean, I understand that we've all got chargers at home now, but it does seem to be a bit unfortunate. But there we go, you know. And it has to be said, the most powerful, most expensive version, I think it's still cheaper than a Duo.
Yeah, it's about the same, I would have thought. Yeah,
and obviously getting a lot of phone for that money, which I think is one of the things when you look at what Microsoft are doing and think, you know, that's what you're up against, and you kind of need to really be coming in below that. But particularly, I mean, for me, what I find interesting is not that top end phone, but I think the iPhone 12 mini, which that's at for Apple a much keener price point. I mean, as you know, I'm quite a fan of the iPhone SE. So
yeah, it's funny, I was talking about that with my wife tonight. She's got still got an iPhone 6, and it's getting a bit long in the tooth now. It's got a crack on the screen. I think we've had it repaired twice.
Yeah.
And she hates the big phones, but the SE just seems perfect. You know, if you've got that similar phone.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what we did, because my wife, she had an iPhone 6S, which is the same form factor as the 6, and in the end, I think the screen, I think it was a relation had a success, and their screen failed, so we gave them our success, and my wife used it as an excuse to basically get a new iPhone. And yeah, because the iPhone SE, it's pretty much the same form factor, so it all feels the same. The only difference is your wife may find the button a bit odd, because obviously it's the iPhone 7 style haptic button as opposed to the actual physical push button, which you would have had with the success. But the guts of it are brilliant, and you know, she's overjoyed. She's overjoyed with the thing, because you know, she's got the thumbprint works in it, so there's no need for a Face ID. The camera's better. Than a success, and it really didn't break the bank. So for an iPhone, obviously, you know, you can get very, very good Android phones for a similar price. I should point that out. If you're in the iPhone ecosystem, I think the SE does make a lot of sense. I think the iPhone 12 mini here is also looks like a good device. Although, again, the cost of it, you can get a very, very good Android phone for that.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think it's 600. It's going to more or less around £600 mark, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, around there. And of course, you know, Apple have finally caught up with everyone else, and they did in 5G. I mean, there's improvements around sort of, you know, 4K recording and sound and what have you, but they're all kind of incremental things. There's nothing groundbreaking in it. But I have to say, you know, just looking at these shots you put on the screen there, they're not just definitely looking old-fashioned now, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely does. And just the I just think a single screen looks old-fashioned to me now, but more on that later. But yeah, the notch does look a bit odd, but yeah, I mean, look at the they'll sell, as we always say, they sell well. There's no
yes,
danger
definitely
of them not selling.
Absolutely, and I think in the US, is it Verizon have announced they're going to roll out a 5G network to kind of because I think a lot of people held off from the last iPhone waiting for a 5G version, because while there's not a lot of 5G signal out there, when you buy these things, you want them to last for a few years for that much money. And so I think, you know, the rollout of the 5G network is going to, you know, assist with the surge of iPhone 12 purchases. In the UK, I think I think EE have been first out the gate to announce. I think EE, they're also quite proud of their 5G network as well. So, I mean, I remain a little bit unconvinced by 5G, unless the latency is a thing, because I think a decent 4G signal will do most of the things that most people need anyway, when 4G is running at a proper speed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I suppose it depends on whether it's going to change the way that people work. But for me, the 4G speed is absolutely fine. I'm not trying to download gigabyte files. I suppose it's if we change the way that we work and we get rid of ADSLs and fibers and use 5G at home, then maybe that will change. But even on a phone, I can't. Maybe you're doing some video uploading or something like that. Really, if you, like you said, if you get a good 4G signal, it really, it's pretty good. It's adequate. The issue is more or less is when you can't get a decent 4G. So if you can't get a decent 4G, you're not going to get a 5G.
Exactly. Yeah.
As ever, these look really nice phones, and wife did say, well, maybe I should look at other phones. I think she means Samsung, but I think if you've used an iPhone for so long and really happy with it, there's not. And if you're not particularly technical, then staying with an iPhone is a perfectly good solution.
Absolutely, yes, you're right. I mean, there's a definite muscle memory if you're an iOS user, and I mean, certainly I found it a wrench going from using an iPhone to using an Android phone. I found it a very different experience. But then that's where you have things like the Microsoft Launcher to make things more familiar.
Yeah, that's true. Microsoft Launcher is. I think it was a really good idea for Microsoft to take that. Was it Arrow Launcher that they've used, and they rebranded it as Microsoft Launcher, and now it's on the Surface. But I've used it on all my devices, Android devices, and it does make moving from one OS to another one device to another pretty easy. In fact, what I have noticed about using multiple phones over the last couple of weeks, going from the Pixel to the Note and the Duo, is it's very easy now with all the cloud services to move phones and even to use multiple phones. With OneDrive and Outlook syncing and everything's cloud-based, OneNote, all these things. You can pick up more or less any device now and have all the information at your fingertips. You're not really stuck to one device and then moving things over like you were 10 years ago or whatever. So I've been using the. So you asked me. You said to me last week about moving my SIM card over, didn't you?
Yes. How's it going?
So I did do that, and my original plan was just to carry on using the Note, and I've got a data SIM in. I had a data SIM in the Duo, and I'd just use the Duo for sort of some testing purposes where I've got it. But actually, I really like using it, so I moved the SIM over anyway. Regardless of what I was thinking, oh, maybe I won't do that, but I did move the SIM over, and it's actually been really good. I moved the SIM over because I prefer using this device over everything else. I've got used to the wider screen, and find that the very tall screen of the Note feels really strange now. Those kind of tall, thin screens do feel a bit weird. Even there's got to be something said for even using if Microsoft or a Android OEM produced a device like the Surface Duo screen, but as a single screen version of it, because that actual wide form factor is actually a really nice way of browsing. So yeah, I've moved over. I moved the authenticator. I'm using everything on here now, and I got an update this week that came out. It was the first October update for the Duo, or the October update for the Duo, which is the first of the monthly updates, and it's made quite a big difference in stability. I think I had it for 2 days before the update. I did see a few issues especially around the launcher, and some sort of quirkiness with going from screen to screen and that kind of thing, and some lockups, and that seems to have gone away now. So the update that came out this week has been pretty good. I also got a launcher update this week as well, which also has improved the stability, and added a couple of visual changes. So I think the actual October update included the October Android security update, improves the calling experience, includes fixes some Facebook issues, some device stability, and then the launcher introduced just the latest version of the launcher, which has got some nice coloured backdrops for the apps that are split. So like I said, I've been using this full time now. No problems using it as a phone. Using it with the dual screen is fantastic, especially with Outlook on OneNote. Work really well on that. The side-by-side sharing of apps is pretty good as well. I hit the social button, and I've got Reddit and Twitter open side by side. That works really, really good. Moving things from screen to screen works really well. Spanning them when the apps support the spanning, but even when they don't support it, it's still pretty good. So I really like it. It's plenty fast enough. There are the drawbacks. The obvious drawback is the camera. Multiple issues with the camera. First, it's not a brilliant camera, and the second being that it's very slow. So if you're taking a landscape picture, it's fine. But if you're trying to grab a quick snap of something or somebody, by the time you've done it and taken the shot, like I just did it then, and there you go, it's about 2 seconds or something like that, which is okay. But a couple of times I was using it, and it would lag or whatever. So that's a bit of an issue. And of course, sometimes you're trying to work out which way round the orientation is for the camera as well. So if you're a photographer and like taking your pictures, then this is definitely not the device. And I use the Note for all the photos because that's got a brilliant camera on it. The other thing I cited, obviously no NFC, so we're talking about mobile payment. That's a bit of a pain. No, I've been carrying the Note with me as well, and I've also got the TicWatch, which has got Google Pay on it. So I've been using the TicWatch to pay. But again, it's a drawback. And the wireless charger, I'm not too bothered about if it wasn't for the fact that there's been some reports of weaknesses of the USB, and so wireless charger would get around that as well. So there's those issues. In terms of stability, one issue I've found just seems to be in driving. So when I'm driving, I've got a car holster and I put it into the single screen mode like that. Sometimes it gets a bit confused, and I think the rear screen might be on. And it's not done it today since the launcher was updated, but I noticed yesterday, I was tapping some of the buttons and nothing was happening. Not that you should be using your phone when you're driving anyway, but it's, with the Bluetooth, I don't need to touch it, but I was actually changing music on it. But Well, anyway, I've really like it, especially for sofa browsing. It's brilliant for that. Just scrolling through Twitter or Reddit or whatever you're on. I think it's really good for that. It's really nice for that. For productivity, it's good. I'm doing the show notes for the podcast. I had OneNote in one window and Outlook in the other. The Edge in the other, and it works great for that. What it totally reminds me of, I think I said this last week, is if you've ever, when you go from a single screen PC to a dual screen PC, going back to a single screen PC is actually really difficult and really frustrating. And that's exactly what this feels like. It feels like that step up from a single screen laptop to a dual screen laptop, or a laptop with a monitor. So that's what it feels like. Aside from the things I mentioned with the camera, particularly, there's not really a huge amount of downsides to using it. I really like using it. It feels really nice. It's great for taking notes on, meeting notes, whatever, with OneNote, with the pen. So yeah, I really like it. I think version 2, if they included NFC, wireless charging, maybe a better camera, that would resolve many of the issues and maybe make it a bit stronger. But we'll see. So I do like it, and I'm surprised myself how much I've liked it, and hopefully I'll keep hold of it for a bit longer. And the Note, where I still do carry it around, especially for the pictures, I don't like at home carry it around with me anymore. I leave this on the desk. Only if I go out and think I might take some photos, I'll take that Note with me as well. So a very nice device, not recommended for anybody really. Yet, but you can see where Microsoft going with it, and I think they're going in the right direction.
Cool.
Right. Okay. So the updates are available now for the launcher and for the security updates. It's pretty good on the security side. I think the Android security patch came out on the 5th, and Microsoft pushed it out on the 6th. So I've not had that security update on the Note yet. So it should, they're doing, by sticking with standard Android, that means that you're getting the security update straight away. Now, talking about updates, we have a few insider build updates this week. In fact, we just had one this evening. It's not in the show notes, but I actually speculated that the 20H2 would come out today.
Yeah, as did I, but it doesn't seem to have, unless it's on its way.
Yeah, they did push out another patch, cumulative update for 20H. Well, it is a cumulative update anyway, isn't it? But they did push out another patch today that I've just got installed, and my Surface here is waiting. So that's for release preview and beta channel.
Well done.
But it's just a minor update, fixes a couple of things.
Yeah, that's pretty much it now. We're just waiting for the final thing to come around.
I'm surprised they haven't pushed the button on that. Maybe this update will be it, and then they push it next week. Sometimes they do have the C updates, don't they, on the 3rd Tuesday? Maybe that will be the day.
Oh, crikey,
yeah. We also had a new dev channel build last week. I said fast ring then. Dev channel build last week, 20231, and the ISO with that as well.
Yeah, and
there's
even been an update to that yesterday, actually.
Yes, there was. Yeah, it was servicing patch or something. They were testing out the servicing pipelines. Not a huge amount of difference, but there was a new screen that you can kind of pick what you're going to be using the device for. Yes,
this is the customize your device out of box experience, isn't it? Where if you're doing a clean install, it will say, so what are you going to use your PC for then? It'd be a gaming, family, creativity, or what have you. And then it will adjust things based on what you say there. So you can say, I'm going to be mainly using it for business or perhaps schoolwork. And then after that, the setup process should change. Although I think this is another A/B testing thing, isn't it? So not everyone's going to get this. And of course, you only get it if you're doing a clean install.
Yeah, that's right. It's you do get it if you get a clean install, and also, like you said, you only get it when you do a clean install. So I did try this. So I've got a video. I did my normal build video where it wasn't included, and I did a clean install as well on my virtual machine to give this a test. And there's not a huge amount to see. You can see I've just shown it on the screen now, but you've got sort of gaming, creative, business, schoolwork, and entertainment, and you just tick the boxes. But it doesn't actually do anything, does it? Under the
not really.
And I guess that they'll build some AI rules around this, and some framework around this. So when you pick schoolwork or business, it pins the Office app to the start menu, and
yes,
pins.
I seem to recall there being some work done a while ago. If the PC thinks it's going to be used as a gaming rig, it does different. Windows will behave slightly differently. I think there was.
That's part of 20H2, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I guess this must be more of it, which does make sense. I mean, it's annoying because it's one more extra page you have to go through when you're doing that first time setup. But equally, hopefully, it will make things easier for first time users to say, and then have the various things that we'll have to tweak afterwards will then happen automatically, and it may not ask some questions that aren't necessary.
Yeah, that's right. And there is a couple of videos floating around. Some people have managed to enable the Windows 10X out-of-box experience in this build, which does also simplify things as well. So maybe a combination of that and this, that we're going to see when this next update comes out, whenever this will be, we'll see a much simplified out-of-box experience for the whole thing then.
Yeah, hopefully
and a tailored approach.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to see, because there are way too many boxes at the moment, and I understand why they did this. They weren't on the original versions of Windows 10. They added them a lot around privacy.
Privacy, I can't help. I mean, I think this has been said by other people. I can't help wishing for privacy. Instead of all the various questions, it just says, send stuff to Microsoft, don't send stuff to Microsoft. That's all I want. That's it. But it's so many questions you have to answer now, saying, well, do you want adverts? You can say no, but it won't change the amount of adverts you get. They just won't be telling to you. It's just, oh, crikey. I mean, I do wonder how people cope with it. If you're not an experienced user, will you actually understand what these questions are asking you?
Yeah. So maybe with the Windows 10X experience, they can simplify all that.
Well, hopefully so. And obviously, I think we'd like to see a lot more Windows 10X tech in Windows 10. I mean, I keep hoping we might see it next. We might see it next year. I hear there are running builds out there, within Microsoft, but I have no idea if it's going to ever see the light of day in the next 12 months or 18 months, really.
Yeah, I think we talked about it last week. Didn't it would be really good to see some builds of Windows 10X out there, and for us to test them. The rumours are it's coming in the first half of next year. That will be effectively 21H1 will be Windows 10X, but with no devices to test it on, with no images, and
exactly,
given the long lead times, it's a bit worrying. I
mean, I wonder if we may see the first build around Microsoft build time next year, perhaps.
Yeah, possibly. And of course, the emphasis has changed from the dual screen devices to the single screen devices. We're losing the Win32 emulation as well. And I want to see it because I know this is the future of Windows 10 that we'll be looking at, and we always said that even when they talked about it just being for dual screen devices. But now their focus is back on single screen. The lack of emulation, I'm not sure how it's going to fit in. We've been through this issue without having the Win32 apps on Surface devices, and that was a problem last time. Whether they can get around it this time, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, people use Chromebooks without Win32, so maybe there is a way.
Well, yes, indeed, but I think expectations are different. I mean, Microsoft is all about backwards compatibility, so people don't expect their crumbly old Windows apps to work on a Chromebook or an iPad or a Mac, but with Windows, there is a different level of expectation, particularly from business, and of course, there's not so much of an onus on app developers to upgrade their apps to from being Win32 desktop to being whatever Windows 10X needs or whatever else. So. Yeah, it is a tricky one. I think it's a curse of the universality of Windows. There's so many different configurations out there. I don't envy Microsoft really, and as I think we've said before, Windows itself is a miracle that it works at all with the sheer vast array of stuff it has to support. So it's in many ways it's quite miraculous.
Yeah, it is. Do you see that all the review units of the Surface Pro X and the Surface Laptop Go, or I think it's particularly Laptop Go reviews seem to hit today, so it's sort of like the embargoes were lifted today.
Yes, I mean, I think they seem to be, at least as far as the Laptop Go is concerned, they do seem to be, I'd say perhaps a slight air of disappointment around it all. It's like, it's a nice hardware, but wow, it's expensive for to make it properly, to make it usable, you really need to go for at least the mid range one. I mean, the Core i5, great, that's great. That will handle almost all day-to-day tasks, and it is a big improvement over the Surface Go. However, what they were thinking with that 64 gig MMC eMMC drive and 4 gigs of RAM. I just cannot imagine, really can't imagine why they'd put that spec there, apart from to tick some box somewhere, because it's just, you know, it's a lot of money for a low spec machine when everyone's going to really want to, you know, my nightmare is somebody buys that and gets very disappointed by the experience.
Yeah, it's and I know the Surface and the Surface Go and the Surface Go 2, that option's available. I've got a Surface Go, but I avoided that low price one, and even that this Surface Go feels a little sluggish time to time, mainly when I'm installing new builds. But actual operate day to day is all right. But I wouldn't like to go on that bit slower spec with the eMMC drive and the 4 gig of RAM.
Exactly. I mean,
that extra RAM.
Yeah, I mean, certainly. I mean, with that 64 gig eMMC drive, even taking the performance to one side, you're going to fill that up in no time. When that's going to fill up within seconds and be gone. I just don't know what they were thinking with really doing that, because I mean, how much would it cost? When is it really that much difference in price at a bill of materials level to go from eMMC to SSD when you're building the things? It just seems like just a strange choice to make, and that seems to be what the reviews are saying, that it's the ones I've seen so far that the hands-on have been, you know, it's, you probably want to go for the mid-range one, but it's a little bit expensive, but you are getting the Surface design.
Yeah, you're paying for the Surface Premium, as we talked about Apple devices at the beginning of the show. Same thing, you're paying a premium for those devices. You can get an equivalent spec or Android type phone cheaper, but you choose not to with that. And maybe it's a bit more like for like with a Windows PC, but you could probably get a nice Acer device that has got better spec for the same money. But you're paying for that Surface brand, and it's nice to have an entry level one in there. I just think maybe they've got 2 entry level with the small.
Oh, for sure. It's got a nice touchscreen, isn't it? It's very light, very light indeed.
I'm surprised there's no pen support on it.
That is odd, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair, I very rarely use it. I can't remember when I've used a pen on the Surface laptop. On the Surface Go, I do use it quite a lot, but not on the laptop.
Yes, I mean, I guess it would be if you're using it for note taking, perhaps. I mean, the time I found the Surface Pen the most useful was when I was using a Surface Hub 2 recently, and that was, you know, the pen made perfect sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also on the Studio 2, which I'm a little bit worried about. I'm a bit worried about the Studio as well. That that's due for an update to date as well at some point. So I'm hoping we'll see a CPU boost on there, and Microsoft not walk away from that form factor, because it's quite cool, the Surface Studio as a flagship device.
Yeah, it's like a Halo device. Yeah, it's definitely not your everyday device, but
no.
Yeah, it is a lovely device when you see it. So I think the reviews have been, I've seen, like you said, the reviews have been, go for the middle one. It's a really nice device. You're paying a premium for it, but it is very nice.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. I shan't be rushing out to buy one.
Yeah.
Although that said, I'd probably do like the Surface Laptop 3 though.
Yeah, Surface Laptop 3. If I've got this Surface Laptop 2, which is great, and as I mentioned previously, the only downside for me is I went too small on the hard drive with the 128. I wish I'd gone for the 256, but next time I'll go for the bigger one.
Next time.
Yeah. I think the Pro X2, I've not seen any reviews in it. That maybe the embargo slightly later on that one, or just getting people's hands now. But I don't expect to be a huge difference between the original one.
No, I don't think it is much different. It'll be a slight speed bump. I think that's really waiting for the native apps to all appear, and the 64-bit emulation to come out. I think that'll make a difference there. As I said, I don't fully understand the market for the Pro X at all, but I mean, if they would make an Intel version of the Pro X, then I'd be all over it. But the ARM version, there's just not enough native Microsoft apps out for it yet. Really, it's a shame. I don't really understand where they're going with that, apart from as a way maybe to show other manufacturers how to build these things, which actually is one of the things I'm a bit, I find interesting about the whole Surface laptop Go. That is that, one of the whole things about Surface when it appeared was Microsoft kind of showing other manufacturers, here's how we want you to make stuff. Stop making rubbish, make stuff like this. Whereas as they progress with things like Surface laptop, they do seem to be competing more with their ecosystem, which might be a bit of a dangerous game to start playing.
Yeah. I mean, certainly, perhaps that's one of the reasons why you're paying the premium price, is so that they don't directly compete spec for spec.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks nice device. Like I say, laptop is not something. The laptop Go is not something that would be any good for me for what I do, but I can see for a lot of people it would be a fine device, and yeah, it's good to have the choice on there.
Yeah. So, but speaking of price or bang for buck, did you see the new microbit?
Yeah. Now, Gary can't with us tonight. We should be coming back soon, but he did say mentioned about this. So, the microbit is the education device.
Yeah, it's kind of like a credit card. I mean, we're all very familiar with the Raspberry Pi. The microbit is an even more cut down credit card size computer, which I think it's kind of it's not sort of sponsored or paid for by the BBC, but it's got the BBC name. It's kind of when it came out, did it come out in 2014? I think in the first place.
Yeah.
And its spec is even lower than the base Raspberry Pi, but it's more than good enough for kids to play with and do some coding with. I think it comes with a whole range of coding, but the RAM, wonderfully, I think it was 16 kilobytes when it first came out, which it takes us right back, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does take you right back. Yeah.
But they've done a 2020 edition now where they've basically upped all the specs, so it's actually now more usable. You've got I think it's is it 128 kilobytes now on board, which you can use, and I think 512 kilobytes of storage. So it's quite a jump in terms of storage for that size machine, because it only costs about £12 or something. It's ridiculously cheap. And it's got a Cortex M4 processor, rocking along at 64 megahertz, so which is up from 16.
Is that turbo?
I don't know. I don't know if it's got a turbo button or not. But it's a great little device, and it's kind of much like the Raspberry Pi in many ways, but it's got its origins in the concept of the BBC Micro from back in the 80s. Although obviously it's not made by Acorn, who are long gone, but it's just a neat little thing that's very easy for kids to get up and running with.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? And it supports like Python, doesn't it, and other languages. And I think getting something simple, cheap, and that's not really fragile into schools is brilliant. And
well, exactly. It's a very low stakes machine because it is, as I said, so cheap. And as you say, it's very easy to sort of fire it up to do things like coding in Python. Where say on a Raspberry Pi, you've really got a full blown Linux install to run on an SD card. Life's a lot simpler with the microbit.
Yeah, I think it's a great device, and anything that can get kids into programming is brilliant. Especially when the future is all cyber, according to the government.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, we shan't mention those. We shan't mention those adverts going around at the moment.
Yeah, I think I think anything that makes accessible, just like the BBC Micros were for our generation, or the TI 99s, if you were speaking that way disposed. But yeah, that accessibility, especially you plug your micro in those days, you were there at the basic prompt, and that was the program interaction. It was that immediate, and I think getting something back to that is great for kids, because a full-blown Windows or Intel device is just not something that you can get kids straight into programming. So yeah, I think having that hardware that tactile you can play with, and put sensors on and lights and things.
Exactly. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's really it's not so much for standalone computer in the same way the Pi is, but it's still a very neat thing and a really good educational toy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great. I think the more education, the better.
Yep, definitely.
Okay, so I think that's just about all the time we've got for this week. By the time I've edited out all the network issues,
it'll be a short show.
Yeah.
Well, yes. I mean, it must be just about time for Microsoft to release Windows 10 20H2, I think.
Yeah, hopefully, maybe they'll keep it for us next week. There's a possibility of a guest joining us next week. I'm trying to line some guests up for the next few weeks, so I'll keep an eye on Twitter for that. So, Richard, where can we find you and your Lego?
You can find me being very angry at my Lego on Twitter at Richard_Speed.
you get really frustrated when you can't get it all to stick?
This stuff has, I mean, it's been the most, because I do like playing with Lego, and I'm a 50-year-old man, but I do like playing with Lego, and it is a fun thing, especially some of the later sort of NASA space themed stuff that Lego's done. Has been great to sort of build it with my daughter and just talk through how things worked, and it's good. They're good conversation starters, really. But this one has just been maddeningly complex, and bits haven't quite fitted together properly, and have had to, it's the fact I've had to use glue 5 times, and that's the, each time cut to the quick.
Yeah. So there's a show title for you. Don't glue it. This is what I'll be doing with this edit as well. So, right, Richard. Well, we'll speak to you next week. And so until then, listeners, you can get me on Twitter at @ISDixon and on digital lifestyle.com on our YouTube channel. And we'll see you next week.
Cheerio.